So yesterday we have been seeing how exactly we can start moving down with the criteria and composition of writing a Python script. Okay. Now Python scripts are not complicated, but technically whenever you're working for any implementation, we should have clarity first of all how we can make the entire criteria of the problem to the analysis and the solution to be in a very perfect way. Now, what I generally try to say is, if you're already a beginner, you should not have any particular issues with the writing of this criteria of the scripts, because once your syntactical standards are very clear, then technologically you will not have any specific problem with respect to the criteria and composition of the scripting. Now, one of the core advantage of Python is we can always understand Python at the interpreter level directly, and we can start working with it. Means what? Just watch here. I'm calling my Python, and then once your Python prompt is fundamentally in front of you, then I can always check my constructs of understanding what is the way I need to work through. So what I mean is, you just watch very carefully. We said like yesterday, we have something called as a print function that can always do the job. Now we are just going with the criteria of putting the fundamental statement what we want to get as an execution. Now I'm just trying to say sky is techno. Now I just want to understand one thing very carefully. Okay. Now after this print statement is executed, you just watch very carefully. It is giving you the output on your screen and then immediately returning your prompt to the next line. I want to make the things very clear. Once the output is generated, the print function is executing a new line. Automatically. That is the reason you watch your prompt came in the next line. Means your interpreter prompt came in the next line. Okay. So technically you do not need to really worry about that. So every function has some kind of fundamental default behaviors. Be very, very clear about that. Okay. Every function or any particular operator has its own fundamental behaviors. Be very, very clear about it. Default behaviors we call them as. Now, if you don't understand those default behaviors, what happens? Technically, at a point of time when we are working with more serious input output like standards, we can always have our own fundamental inconveniences. Am I clear with you? So the first thing what you should always understand is, whenever you're dealing with your criteria and composition of your Python print function, it not only prints the data, but it fundamentally prints the data and applies a new line immediately and instantaneously. No, sir, I do not want to have a new line. Okay, you're just saying that I do not want to have a new line. Then what to do? Then you have to instruct Python about that. You have to definitely instruct your Python that I do not want to have any new line after printing the output. Now here you should always understand one thing. Now whenever you're working with your construct of the print, now it is printing the output and this is the end of the line. Do you agree with me? Now when that's the end of the line, definitely it is keeping a new line internally by itself. Therefore, your prompt came to the next line. I want to tell my Python that print me the output, but don't carry the new line. Keep the cursor into the same line. Then what I should do, you just watch. I'm saying print, and I'm once again saying okay. Then I'm just giving my comma here. Now, whenever I give this comma, I'm indicating my print that I have some other parameter that is about to be instructed for the control of the print statement or print function. In this, we have one of the fundamental parameter. What Python is basically going to expect is what to happen at the end of the instruction. So we have a keyword called as end. One of the parameter we have is end. Are you getting me? Now, whenever you're working through the construct, here you just watch very carefully. I am trying to keep an assignment operator there, and I'm just keeping my double quotes with a space. Watch carefully. I'm giving one space with the double quotes. So when I'm doing this, you just watch. My print has started printing the data, and after that, it is continuing in the same line. It's not coming to the new line. Are you watching that? Hello? So we can always give print function certain parameters through which we can control the way it is going to behave and the way it is going to handle the criteria and composition of after printing the data what it has to do. Okay, after printing the data what it has to do, we can just specify it. So the default behavior is no doubt, it is always with the construct and composition of going with the specification of absolutely the kind of behavior it has and the default you want to change. Be very, very clear about that. The same way, I can always go with my print. By default, it is going to give you a new line. Now you just watch carefully. I am saying print. I'm calling my end and I'm saying is assigned as. Now, according to the general programming languages, when we want a new line, we have a new line character called like this. So technically, when I'm keeping it, you just watch, it's just accepting my particular parameter and behaving by default to the concept of this. Are you getting me? So I just wanted to catch up very carefully. By default, the print statement appends a new line. Now for clarity purpose, we can even declare it like this. For clarity, we can declare the end parameter representing the new line. Okay? Am I clear with you? So you are just trying to pass on that. I want to. So by default, it will apply a new line. But technically, if you want, you can just specify that I want new line by overriding. So here you can just give multiple number of new lines as per your criteria of requirements. Am I clear? So it all depends on the way you are fundamentally adapting it. Now here the question comes. Here the question comes like, watch carefully. I'm saying print. In this particular statement itself, I want to give my new line. Or say like I'll give you two new lines so that you can understand. Okay. I want to include this new line as an escape sequence directly within the actual string itself without mentioning that into this. Not the reactive state of your Python. So here the student will say like, so when I can get a new line directly here within my statement itself and it can start parsing the scenario, then why I need to keep my parameter separately? See, for every function what the language designs, it has certain constructive features that is given. Man, in relevance to the new line, you can directly declare it here. Okay. Now, if suppose say like it is other than the new line, there is no other way you can specify or specify only through this. And these particular parameters, whatever you're passing here, any parameter in any programming language can be a constant what you declare, or it can be directly a value supplied through the parameter. Do you agree with me? It's a value supplied at runtime. Do you agree with me? So if an additional parameter is given to you, the indication is what you can customize and you can control this to this particular piece of the function. Am I clear with you? So understanding the function is not important, man. How that function reflects and reacts according to necessity makes a big lot of difference. Am I clear with you? Now you should understand one thing. When you are using this end, it is only speaking about the end parameter to control your print or the beginning behavior of the print. What is your opinion? End. Now, suppose like in all these cases you watch, after printing my output, it is giving me a new line. If I specify this, but I'm expecting that I want a new line before printing this. Now, I think for that, it is providing you the facility that you can always specify your escape sequences within your particular print statement directly. So the number of features are more. That's it. Understanding the function is not important. Understanding its rule of the feature is very important. Am I clear with you? Now let us just try to understand another case. Okay. Now I am just clearing the screen now. Generally, when we go for operating systems, we generally say what? When you want to clear the screen, you'll say CLS. Now these constructs cannot work in Python directly. So if I want to clear my screen, then it is an instruction we should send it to operating system. Do you agree with me? So you just watch. I want to come in. My Python wants to communicate with some of the operating system commands. But writing directly to the OS needs more amount of, say, like language knowledge and the operating system interfaces or not. But in Python, what we can do is you just watch. I'm saying import OS. That's how your module imports can be done in Python according to the need and necessity for you. When I say import OS, I'm telling my Python that import all the features that I can really have from my operating system. Which operating system? On whichever operating system you're currently working in relevance to that operating system. Are you catching the point? So if you say import OS on Windows, it automatically associates with Windows. If you say import OS on Linux, it automatically associates with Linux. If you say import OS on Unix, it automatically associates with Unix. Am I clear with you? That's the beauty here. Now, I want to execute a command that can clear the screen. So execution of functionalities you'll understand slowly, don't worry, but just we need this at this level I'm discussing. So I'm calling my OS as an instance of a object dot, I'm calling my criteria of the method called as system, and I'm passing my command for clearing. Now as far as Windows is concerned, to clear the screen, what is the message? Sorry, what is the command? Windows and DOS, CLS. So that operating system command you have to keep. Okay, that operating system command you will keep. So if you are working in Linux or Unix, this will become what? Clear. But the remaining structure of the code is same or not? Hello. So technically you need to just understand that. So it's just the way of understanding the rule, man. Now I wanted to check one thing. I'm saying print. I'm saying skies, comma. Watch carefully. I'm putting it there, comma. Techno, comma. Solutions. And then I'm putting my bracket. Now here I'm giving this print multiple number of parametrical instructions as a string. So these commas are indicating that take each one as one independent individual output of the print. Am I clear with you? This comma separator instructs that your number of inputs to your print are changing. Am I clear with you? Now when I'm executing this, you watch very carefully, man. Whenever I'm keeping this comma and I'm giving my outputs, I want to watch few things very, very carefully. In this, did you find anywhere any space I gave between the data? No. But it is giving you one space automatically. Are you watching that? So the point what I want you to understand is when strings of input are supplied to the print function, and they are separated or delimited by comma, print function by default uses the string separator as space. Okay, string separator as space character. Am I clear with you? So this is default behavior. This is default behavior. Are you catching my point? Now, there may be situations I do not want space, I want something else. Do you agree with me? So in such cases, what I should do now? So we have one fundamental parameter. Watch carefully. Comma SEP. Okay. SEP is one argument in your particular Python. Okay. Then you just watch, I'm saying SEP and I'm just assigning by saying that I want an hyphen. Am I clear with you? I'm saying that I want a hyphen. Now you just watch carefully what it is doing. It's not my separator as a delimiter has changed or not. So try to understand these particular factors very clearly. So can't I make my separator argument in such a way that I can change my delimiters automatically very quickly in Python? But only when you are giving individual arguments for your strings. Okay, these commas should give an instruction that you are having some separator, but the default separator is space and you want to make it a hyphen. So why people should always feel like Python is fundamentally easy is you don't need to think too much of what you want to do. Am I clear with you? You don't need to think too much of what you want to actually try to do. So it's basically the way you adapt it and the way you try to associate and start working with the constructs. So separator is one of the argument. Be very clear about that, okay? Come on, Chalapati, I think you can experiment those things, okay? So if I said here asterisk or hyphen, I think the other things you can always do it. No, check. So we need to just understand. Now currently I'm reading with this print the data from where? From my console, yes or no? Now at later stages I'll show you, you can use your print in such a beautiful way that you can make it directly read the data from the files and it can start printing it to you. Immediately, let us not worry about that. And print always has wonderful ability. It has always wonderful ability to handle the data even from collections, which we will see at the later stages. Print is just a small criteria. Are you getting me? So try to understand this case. Therefore, string, see, these are all fundamentally what? Individual parameters. So anytime by common sense, it's clear when in any particular language, parameters are separated using what? Commas only. Yes or no? Am I clear? So just watch very carefully. In the place of asterisk, I kept comma now. So I don't think this comma is having any conflict with this now. So print is just not something you just apply it, okay? You need to just understand the rule of a constructs, what you will get through. So be clear. And now here, just one small point before we can just think of the other ones. So shall I give all these things in double quotes or single quotes? Now you just watch here. I'm giving this in single quote. So I told you yesterday itself, generally you're coming from other languages, you always have one thing in your mind that strings are in always double quotes and characters are in single quotes. That kind of variation is up to you. Python never considers anything too much to the rule of the boilerplate syntaxes. Am I clear? Now the next thing is, sir, if I keep a semicolon, what happens? It never considers that it is essential. If you keep it, it never considers that it's an error. It just ignores it because it knows where your fundamental function or your operation is terminating. It has absolute clarity. So now you want all these things to be kept as a script. Now I think that's something you will open your editor. Then I'm just trying to say os dot system and I'm saying CLS. Just watch carefully. I'm saying print output from Python default new line as end character. Now here output from Python with the continuation of next output on the same line. Now here I'm just trying to say end of then we are going with the output from Python with end users new line as end character. Output from Python with more new lines added from the end user. Okay. Output from Python with a new line at the beginning of the current output. Output from Python with a new line at the beginning and ending of the actual output embedded into the string. I'm going with the print so I'm giving multiple strings, let us say. I'll make it more clear. Default space separator. Now I'm just trying to say this is custom separator between the strings. Now here I should say sep, okay? That is separator. So here we are saying this is custom separator between the strings with end line parameter. Means I just want to say END so these are all a batch of executions or not? So do you have patience to write your code? Be very, very clear about that. Ajit, I think I did not discuss any variables with you, no? So please don't run. Just wait. Now you could be having anxiety, but the other beginners could be there in the course. Okay, let them understand. So whenever you are trying to work with your criteria, are you people are clear? So first time beginners, you need to concentrate. I'm very, very slow only to make you understand the process. So now this batch, I have to save it now. So I'm calling my save. The construct where you want to save it, you need to make a decision. Just a minute, I'm picking up the location where we can save it. So here we are having level 01 and I'm just trying to say like script 002. Now whatever name you give, that's up to you. Yesterday I showed you. Now this batch you have to execute now. To execute this particular batch, you need to have your path with you now. So we said cmd cd, then we are changing our directory to that drive. Then here I'm calling my Python launcher by just saying script 002.py. Now you may find people who say that please use some IDE and you can work out. Don't go with IDE immediately, man. When you should touch your IDE, I'll tell you. Don't worry about that. So now when you're executing it, I think these outputs will tell us what exactly we are trying to do. So it's only the first level patience what you should have when you're trying to work with your construct and composition of your Python. So first time beginners, just start, okay? Just start making your hands dirty by trying to understand the way you need to pick up. Maybe it's a very simple program for people coming from already programming languages, but I think understanding the rule of the print is very important for us. There are many more things we should add into the print, but few things I cannot discuss immediately because we need to understand what is variable declaration, then going along with the process, the collections, so many things are there. So as I am moving down through the process, definitely I will speak on the extensions. Am I clear with you? So I think it's something what you need to really plan up. So print is not a difficult functionality, man. Print is technically not a difficult functionality. But I don't think with only print we can do all the activity what we are expecting. Do you agree with me? With only print, can we do everything what we need? Definitely not. Why? Because when we are working with print, we are having only static data which is constant by nature. But your programming is always wonderful only when it is looking dynamic by the rule of the inputs what you can take. So Python also has, like other languages, the concept of how it can take the inputs. Okay. So we have been looking into these aspects. So how to capture input from Python. Now, whenever you deal with a Python, data input can come in various number of ways, not just one way. Okay, your data input can come in various number of ways. You should always keep one thing. The first basic area from where you can get the input is the command prompt, means your console. You can get your data input from database also. You can always have your data inputs coming from file system or files directly. You can even get your inputs from another computer directly, means through networking. You can have inputs directly taken from the mouse clicks and movements also. Because whenever I'm moving my mouse or I'm clicking my mouse, from there also you can always get your inputs directly. You can take your inputs from the internet, means browser integrated environments. So for a basic beginner, input is only what? Input is anything that is coming from this particular criteria and composition of command prompts. But if you start from this command prompt and if you can understand the things very effectively, then all these things are discussions as we go down through the process. Only when you're working with the criteria of another computer and from internet, for this you need web-oriented programming, and for this you need network programming, which are fundamentally beyond the current sessions. Okay, those are two independent specializations. Now whenever I want to take any data from the mouse clicks and movements, then this comes under GUI, graphical user interface. So when you're coming into the industry, your industry will expect at least you have knowledge to these three areas minimum. Means your data input standards, are you really good enough to understand by command prompt? It's compulsory, but can you extend yourself with files and databases also? They will check. Above that, with another computer, let us say, or mouse clicks and movements from internet, depending on your specialization, what you really speak in your resume, they will speak. So, sir, can I take from another computer? Definitely, but you need to learn how to work with Python network programming. Each one is its own specialization. The inputs are not only from command prompts. You need to always understand that. So, major part of the input actually comes from the keyboard. It always comes mostly from the stems from the keyboard. So can we first make a criteria of constructing the input from the keyboard first of all? So to get the input, Python should provide you some function. So Python provides you two different variations of the function. One is raw input, which is basically used in older version. Means if you're working in Python second version, raw input is used. From starting from third version, the latest, we should use input function. The latest is input function. So your input function always makes you get the data technically from your standardized interfaces that can get you the data. But here you should understand, whenever it is capturing the data, whenever input statement is capturing the data, be very clear, it considers any input data as a string. So input in Python will be having an optional parameter, which is the prompt, which can be defined through the string, and the default data type that you are always going to be considered for any input you give is a string input only. So any input function you take it, you apply that in your particular program. That particular function, whenever it is called, your program flow will be automatically paused until the user is not giving the input and is pressing the enter key. So whenever your input function is basically called, you should always understand the program flow will be absolutely paused, means it will wait on the console, it will wait until the user is giving the input, and then you have to hit the enter key. Means until you do not hit your enter key, it will not consider that your input is terminated or your input is accepted. Am I clear? So the input of the user will always be interpreted, means it is parsing that particular piece of the input, then it is interpreting the input. Now any kind of input is a value, so it should be recognized to some data type. So the default what your Python considers is a string. Therefore the basic general criteria of your function for input is any input should be stored into a variable. Therefore it will be technically considering that to be assigned. If you're working in second version of Python, you'll use that raw input and you should assign that to some variable. Now if you're coming from other languages, the student will always have one fundamental doubt like, sir, what is the data type I should consider for this variable? You don't need to. So I'm calling my raw input and this is my prompt, what I'm giving to my end user, so that he can understand that he should give this particular input. Whatever data I give here, the data is taken by default as string only, and that string of value will be coming into this variable. Now if it is a third version, the only difference is raw input will be replaced by input. All the remaining things are same. Am I clear? So here I just want to make one fundamental point. Every input should be assigned to a defined variable in Python. Okay. Second point, the prompt for the end user is not mandatory, but it guides the end user to understand the type of values to be passed as per the business requirement. Okay, you're only guiding the end user what kind of data he should enter. That's first thing. Now the second thing you should always understand here is this assigned variable is never declared by any data type by the end user, means programmer, by the programmer. Hence this variable will automatically associates to a default data type as returned by the input function. Okay, whatever kind of data type of value your input function is returning, to that data type automatically this variable will be adjusting. Am I clear with you? So until the programmer is not applying concerned data type, the input value is treated as string. Okay. Never forget that. Until you do not specify, it will be treated as a string object. That's how we say Python always goes with dynamic typing. Am I clear with you? So you should always keep one particular construct very clear. It is absolutely going with these constructive points now. Therefore, there are certain points of concentration what you need to keep in. Python input functions will consider every input value as a string type. Now, whenever you're implementing any numbers, if you don't mention, they'll go as strings. Therefore, if you think that it should be a number, then you should confirm whether it should be an integer or it should be a float or anything by using either immediate typecasting or later typecasting. Okay, there are two kinds of typecasting standards. One is called as immediate typecasting, and the other one is called as later typecasting. Before you implement any mathematical operations and you try to execute it, you have to do the corresponding typecasting compulsorily. So what is the kind of data you are expecting to enter that you should tell by yourself at the time of entering? So it's a developer's responsibility to specify Python what is the data type he is considering for it. Okay, and that can be done in two ways. I can take the data as string and later on I can say it is a number, or at the time of taking the data itself I can say it's a number. Now whatever way you do, that's up to your convenience, but whatever methods are there, I have to show you. Therefore, since Python treats every input as a string, every input value as a default string object, proper typecasting should be done. If proper typecasting is not done and you try to put the Python constructs into the mathematical or operational areas, you'll find your Python compositions could be failing. Okay, am I clear with you? So now every input should return the data to a variable. Now am I clear? Means we should understand how variables are managed in Python first. Am I clear? Until you do not understand how variables are managed in Python, there's no meaning of discussing the input statement. So keeping that into the criteria, before I give you any examples on input, I'll first finalize how to understand the Python identifiers or variables. Okay, so the variable declaration concept and the internal state of architecture what Python really deals with, that's where we are going to concentrate in the next 24 hours. So let us see what's exactly waiting for us. Okay, so even today I was not overloading you with anything too complicated. I mean, especially beginners, first time learners, I'm very slow. But for people already coming from other programming languages, you may feel I'm too slow. See, my intention is first I should pick up the first time beginners to come up in a very proper way. Once they gain confidence, then I can take everybody into the higher levels. So let me think about those people who really want to come into the IT with non-IT backgrounds to become a programmer. So that's where my focus is. And whenever I'm discussing anything, you may have anxiety of certain things. You please don't try to get yourself into the anxiety, because as you go on listening to my lecture, you'll get your solution slowly. There were few people who are messaging me. Don't think that I'm not answering you. When I am finding your message, I'll be analyzing the message. It has to be answered immediately or not. When I know that I'll be discussing that component of thing in the next level in another 2-3 minutes. I may not carry your messages. So please see that you're continuously focusing on what I am speaking and what I am about to speak in the next few minutes. And certain things you cannot get solution immediately. For that, you may need a different level of preparation with different topics also. When I think your answer should be, your question should be answered with certain other topics in consideration, then definitely I'll make the things wait and I'll maybe moving on to that level. So please see that you're synchronizing. Thank you very much. Once again with you tomorrow. Have a nice day. Take care of yourself.